In the name of Almighty Allah, the most gracious, the most merciful. As Muhammad, peace be upon him, narrated, if anyone travels on a road in search of knowledge, Almighty Allah will cause him to travel on one of the roads of paradise. Hello everyone, this is Dr. Tariq Masood. Thank you very much for watching my videos and your wonderful support to make the channel a grand success. We are a family, a partner. Please share and subscribe our channel if you haven't done so far. We as a team can work together to convert challenges into opportunities and opportunity into success stories. These success stories can be monetized into value addition in the world by large. Thank you very much for your precious time. Today, I'm going to discuss my lecture number 30, Center of Excellence on HAZOP study. Okay, before my lecture, I used to read a Quranic verse. Qala Rabbi shrah li sadri wa yassir li amri wahlul uqdatam min lisani yafqahu qawli Allahumma Rabbi zidni ilma. O my Lord, open my chest and ease my task for me, and loose a knot from my tongue that they may understand my saying. Allahumma Rabbi zidni ilma. O Allah, advance me in my knowledge and true understanding. Center of Excellence, lecture number 30. HAZOP study guideline, section number 5. Okay. So we are still working on HAZOP identifications here. So after HAZOP identification, we will work on a quantitative risk assessment, QRA. Okay, HAZOP study lecture number 30. Key takeaway points from lecture number 30. First, if we can see here, HAZOP study sequence, then HAZOP a review process, and a risk mitigation. Okay. HAZOP particular descriptions of the review procedures. First, this area, if you can see here, identify. Select a plant area, node, selected category, discuss and agree, and intent over here. And then guide words. Over here, further hazards. Is it possible? Is it likely to happen? If yes, okay, come over here. If no, then you can go back here. Okay, the next stage are first a brainstorming here, and second here the risk and its causes. Further here, assessment area. First, prevention and protection. Second, controls required for the prevention. Number 3, actions, recommendations. And number 4, prioritize risk ranking. Okay. So after that, you can go back after completion the risk assessment. Okay. So the next stage here. Okay. The HAZOP study sequence. Best to understand if it's divided into these steps. The first is section and area here. Select the appropriate section area of the plot. Second is define the design intent of the area and a process condition. Number 2. Number 3 here. Select the first or next HAZOP category. It will be referred to the appendix 1. We will discuss on later stage. The next is brainstorming. Apply the first or next guide word, which when combined with HAZOP category will give the HAZOP scenario, referred to appendix 1. After that, a credibility. Determine by brainstorming all the potential causes of the hazards. Okay. After that, next category, assess the sequence here. Assess the sequence of each causes, assess the protection and the prevention provided against the cause and its consequences. Okay. Next level here, assess the hazards. assess the likelihood of each hazard. Next level here, assign the risk level of each hazard using the any oil and gas industry risk assessment matrix standard control in place, and all safeguards considered in the design shall be accounted while assigning the risk level. Okay, then next is recommendations. Agree on a recommendation for action or further consideration of the problem if applicable. Okay. Next, apply the next guide word. Apply the next guide word relevant to the selected hazards category. Apply the next hazard. Apply the next hazard category until they have all been considered. Okay. Next here, switch to the next area of the plant project until the whole study or has been examined and completed. Okay. Okay. Hazard review process. First, the area of definitions. The project area under the hazard study has to be subdivided into the smaller sections to ease the study and team to be able to clearly identify all the design and operational issues. The area definition shall be presented to the hazard review team prior to its study. To that even team members shall have a same understanding on the study scope. Okay. Number 2 here, hazard category and guide words. The team will identify a series of likelihood events and scenarios which could give a rise to hazardous conditions without considering the design features or integrity of the system. However, while assigning the risk level, normal control shall be considered in a place. The hazard team successfully select the combinations of hazard category and compatible guide words applicable to the areas. Okay, in Appendix 1, which we are going to discuss on later stage, present the typical hazard checklist in which some hazard categories are listed and associated guide words. This list recognizes the major hazards found by experience of the PDF hazard study. Okay. Next is the causes. The hazard team brainstorm to identify possible cause of the hazard scenario considered, and all possible causes are to be recorded. For clarity purpose, it is better that all causes recorded are numbered so that one can track the corresponding consequences, preventions, and protection. Okay. Next is the consequences. Once the team identify all credible causes for the hazard scenario, their likely consequences are studied and recorded. Consequences recorded are traceable to the corresponding hazard scenarios by means of appropriate numbering. Next is the control mechanism. Controls, prevention and protections. Prevention and protection shall then be identified by the team, preferably in the order they are implemented, hierarchy of risk reductions and which applicable up to the last measure. Okay, last is risk ranking here. Based on the team experience of the consequences and the likelihood, risk rank shall be assigned to each hazard scenario. Okay, next is hazard checklist. We are going to discuss on my next slide. Hazard checklist here. The study method is a combination of identification, analysis, and a brainstorming based on the hazard identified on the checklist, which is divided into 4 main sections. This is the hazards and divided into 4 sections. Okay, containing several categories. This section contains global hazards and project implementation issues which may be covered once for the whole development. The first, number 1 here, is section 1, external and environmental hazards. Number 2 here is facility hazards. Number 3, health hazards. And number 4, project implementation issues. And then it should be prioritized. Okay. Prefer on Appendix 1, which we are going to discuss on later stage, list of the hazard checklist. The list which we are going to discuss recognize major hazards are found by experience of previous hazard studies. It is not intended to be totally exhaustive and specific to a project. Most appropriate hazards and checklists shall be considered. Hazard checklists shall be comprehensive but not exhaustive. The team shall decide to exclude or include items suggested by the facilitator or member as relevant to the project. The team must also be prepared to use the brainstorming process to identify specific, novel, or unforeseen sources of hazards. Okay, next is the prioritizations. The intention of the hazard is to identify and describe potential HSE hazards. During the study, the team may use a general qualitative system to give a single priority rating to the risk, high, medium, or low, associated with the hazard identified. So we are going to further describe in Appendix 2 on later stage for any oil and gas company risk assessment matrix and its explanations. Okay, next is recording and reporting process. Okay, hazards recording and reporting process. The procedure of a hazard shall be recorded in the company format of HE registers, which we are going to describe in Appendix 3 how to do it on later stage. Recommendation, action, query items shall be recorded, and the corresponding hazard action sheet, as we are going to describe in Appendix 4, shall be generated for subsequent follow-up and closeout by the project. The project engineer shall have the responsibility to ensure appropriate project follow-up of the actions recommendations generated during the review are implemented. Subsequent to hazard, the facilitator shall submit the hazard study report to a company for review and approval. The study report shall document the following. First is the executive summary. Next is scope of the study. Then study methodology. Next is the study team, the notes, review, and the reference used. Summarized here and present the hazard review proceeding, all the recommendation and action raised with a proper reference for closeout actions to be carried out. Okay. Then the hazard identify list those responsible for preparing response to action and recommendation, hazard action sheets, which we are going to discuss on Appendix 4 for same actions. A hazard closeout report shall be submitted by the contractor with accepted comments resolutions to the hazard action sheet for a company review and approval. Okay, next, risk mitigation and tracking. Okay, risk mitigation and tracking. First, specified a risk, all risk, number of actions, and completed on well and track. Action plans need to be specified for all risk, and the numbers of action plans may vary from risk to risk. However, at any point in time, each risk in action plan has to be on status or well on track. Okay, so are considered as non-executable. In other cases, a risk reduction and residual risk specified to the project at each stage shall be monitored. A hazards and effects register shall be useful tool to monitor and track risk controls and residual risk specific to a project. Okay, next is HE register. Okay, HE register shall be unique to a project, and the risks identified during a safety studies shall be recorded to this register. The HE register shall be updated throughout the project life with input from normal design activities, safety studies, hazard and QR, etc. The practice shall be beneficial to track and monitor project hazards during the life cycle of the project of format for a typical HAZOP register, which we are going to discuss in Appendix 3. A project engineer shall be primarily responsible for maintaining the HAZOP register for their project activities. So the company, a guideline for registering hazards and effect so can be identified shall be referred to develop and maintain HAZOP register specified project. Okay, so now we're going to conclude here. So conclusion, today we have discussed HAZOP review process. Okay, our next topic we will discuss all types of appendices. Okay. References: Qatar Petroleum Doha Qatar Oil and Gas Development Corporation Limited Pakistan OGDC, also known World Energy Outlook 2013, US Geological Survey, US Department of Energy, Schellenberger Oilfield Glossary, International Energy Agency, Wikipedia, State Oil, March North 6, The Story of the Oil in Pennsylvania, Air, Liquid Gas Encyclopedia, Natural Gas from Wellhead to Burner Tip. Please do not hesitate to send me your feedback and comments at t.masood.dr@bath.edu. Please stay at home, stay safe, inspired, and blessed. Thank you very much for your precious time and your kind support.